So the video topic for this segment is going to be on leveling the frets in a little bit more time-consuming fashion, perhaps a bit more thorough than to make adjustments individually with a small hammer. As you can see, this fretboard has been completely masked off and taped so that only the frets are showing, and the top of each fret has been covered with a little bit of ink from a Sharpie marker. The idea is that we're going to take this radius beam, which has been covered with 400 grit paper, and we're going to ever so lightly, can't emphasize that enough, very, very lightly remove the top bit of metal off the top of each of these frets until we've broken through the Sharpie marker on each fret, revealing a thin silver line. Now, the width of the silver line we can expect to vary. Because a higher fret we will remove more material, it will be a wider line. In a lower fret we will remove less material and it will be a thin silver line. But the point being is we know we've gotten all the frets when every one of them shows some sort of silver line along its center part. Now, you can clamp this in a vise and lightly move the neck upside down, back and forth, or you can clamp the headstock to the table and pass the beam over back and forth. In our classroom setting, we're simply going to do this by hand. It will have no more downward pressure than merely the weight of the beam itself laying on the frets. And you can hear it scratch along. And the string that is installed, so I cannot go back the other way, and the tuners would be in the way anyhow. So we're not going to take those pieces out. Just going to drag this back a few passes and inspect my progress. And what you can see here is we have a number of high frets. And these high places would not cooperate with attempting to manipulate the fret with a small hammer, necessitating the rest of this activity. So what I've got to do is these other lower frets haven't been touched at all. I've got to continue to sand and remove metal until all of them are clear. This may take several passes. Tape on the fretboard protects the fretboard from these metal chips. There's a lot of fine metal dust here and the occasional stray mark with a Sharpie. As I inspect the progress again, you can continue to see a few more frets are turning silver, but we have an awful lot that are lower that are still dark. So we have to keep going. This one's beginning to come down. There had been 4 here that were black, and then we've got the 3. We're down to 2 here. I think there were more here before. So things are starting to come along. We've got a bit more to do. Everything has to show silver. Does it have to be the same width of silver? No, it does not. If it's wider, it just means it was taller and we took more metal off. Is we have a way to visually see these frets right here where it's silver are all exactly the same height and it doesn't rock on the fret rocker. Where I have a little bit of black, there is a little bit of rocking motion, not very much, but a little bit. Same here, where these sits on these two, but this one's black, it'll rock a little bit, quite a bit. Where it's all shiny and silvery, it sits stable. And again here, so we're going to need to continue on. We're getting close. A little bit right in this region primarily.
You need to keep sanding over the total length of the board.
Essential. You can't really just kind of hone in on a particular spot. Okay, this last fret is starting to break up in this vicinity. So these are probably our two really low frets. The rest of them, they're not 100% from edge to edge like they need to be, but they're getting closer. You can see where the ink and the metal have been. It's been along the center portion. On this particular neck and fret job, the centers were all high and the edges were down nice. So you'll do other ones that are uncooperative, where the middles are snug and perhaps the fret wire wasn't bent to the proper radius, or for some reason they have sprung up on the sides, and so you'll see two dark lines down either side. Getting there. One more. I'm just curious to check with a fret rocker. Tiny amount of rocking. It rocks out here at the edge. These three places, there's still ink. It hasn't been touched. It rocks here. This one's high because it's silver. These two are low because it's black, and it's borne out when we run the fret rocker. Our fret heights are okay at the moment. We've still got enough metal. In an extreme case where you're grinding the frets down and there's not enough metal left, you have to pull them, clean the slots out with a saw, and do a complete refret. The other thing we can do sometimes, especially when you've got this clamped in a vise, is you can run the neck this way, and it helps to kind of curve it. So. That motion did take some ink off of some of these ends. See here on the fret rocker. Some rocking in places. It's definitely better than it was. See, all along here is where the small E string is going to lie. And if we don't take care of this, these notes aren't going to all play like they're supposed to. There's too much rocking to call it. Two places that rock on this side that I'm concerned about. And we still have a little bit of black ink here. These are probably the two lowest places on the entire fretboard, or with the frets. So unfortunately what that means is all the rest of this that's already silver, we have to take some more metal down in order to expose silver in these places, or the consequence is we're going to have notes that don't play. As your sandpaper gets loaded up with metal dust, it can be beneficial to have a small brush to sort of clean out the sandpaper. This is getting a lot narrower from a few passes ago. We still got a little bit of a section in here. Because there are fewer frets here and everything is leveled off, and there are more frets here. I may actually need to do a little bit more sanding in this as I'm coming down to the home stretch. That's almost done, and this is coming along. A couple of frets that are starting to look like they're getting kind of thin, and so even though I know I've got a low spot here, I'm reluctant to do too much more. There are a couple other things we might be able to do about that in order to avoid having to pull all the frets and do a refret. So our next step is going to be to clean the fretboard off, put Sharpie marker on each one of the frets again, and then use this file to impart the crown, because we have a lot of flat spots on the tops here, and that factory crown is gone. So we want to restore that crown, and this filing tool is what we can use for that. I am without my visor with my magnifier looking over the top of my glasses. I don't need that stuff. Give it a minute to evaporate and dry and everything. Okay. So what we've done is we have masked off the fretboard, we sharpied it, we ran the sanding beam along with 400 grit to remove metal to level all the frets. And now what we need to do is we need to put the crown back on the top of the fret, because all these frets have been flattened and lowered in the process of running the beam on. This file can be used in two ways. This edge right here is curved and can conform to the top of the fret, and we can use this to bring the sides in, and that fat, wide black mark, we can bring that into a thin, narrow black mark, as this curved file restores the curved crown. The other way that this can be used, maybe some of the old-timers might go for, is to take this file with the blunted corners so it won't scratch anything, and to progress along the side of the fret and roll the file over. And that also will get you the same result. Take that shoulder off and to narrow the top surface of the fret. So you're working on one side, and you're working on the other side. And you want to watch that black line just continue to get narrower as you go. You want to pay attention. If it's still wide in a particular spot and narrower in another, you want to lay off that, and you want to go back and focus your attention on the places where it's wider, because it still needs more work. And I admit, I'm kind of a fan of using a file like this. Go through the entire process, and then the next step will be to remove all the ink, clean everything up, and take the tape off.